Episode 1: The Man Who Arrived Without Wind. The man arrived at sunset, when the sky above eastern Kenya was painted in bruised orange and fading gold, and no one saw him walking along the road. No one heard his footsteps against the dry earth. One moment, the path beyond the acacia trees was empty, shimmering in the heat and dust, and the next moment he was simply there, standing, watching. He did not look lost. He looked as though he had returned to something that had been waiting. His coat was long and faded, the kind worn by men who travel without destinations. His sandals were worn thin. His face was calm, almost gentle. But his beard was thick and dark, and far too full for a man whose eyes carried that much age. The wind had stopped before he reached the first hut. The air was heavy, unmoving, and the goats resting in the shade had lifted their heads in unease. And yet the beard shifted just slightly, as if touched by fingers no one else could see. A child noticed first. It was always a child. Little Kito had been playing near the well, dragging a stick through the dust, throwing lines that meant nothing. He looked up when the silence grew too loud. Children know that when silence changes shape. He saw the stranger standing at the edge of the village, still as tree trunk, and he saw the beard ripple softly, like grass bending under invisible footsteps. "There is no wind," Kito whispered. He tugged at his grandmother's dress. "Shasha, that man's beard is breathing." The old woman laughed without looking. "You have been listening to the stories again." But when she finally turned her head, the laughter died slowly in her throat, because the air was still, and the beard moved again. The stranger didn't smile. He didn't greet anyone. He simply waited. When the village elder approached him, the ground seemed to hold its breath. "What is your name?" the elder asked. The man's voice, when it came, was low and steady. "Mosi Kilonzo." It was a name that carried weight, but no history. "Where do you come from?" the elder asked. Mosi's eyes drifted briefly across the huts, the well, the distant hills, from where the earth remembers my footsteps. It was not an answer, but it was enough. The elder nodded slowly. "You may stay for the night." Mosi inclined his head. "I will not stay long." The beard shifted again, as if amused by the promise. That evening, the village didn't settle the way it usually did. Dog paced instead of sleeping. Chicken refused to climb into their coops. sat alone in the darkness. He did not light a lamp. He did not lie down. He waited, and as night deepened, the whispers began. They did not come from the room. They came from beneath his chin. Soft at first, barely audible, like distant singing carried across the water. The beard trembled. Memories pressed against his mind. Old songs sung around fires long turned to ash. The metallic scent of the blood spilled into soil that had never forgotten it. The warmth of a woman's breath from a lifetime that was not his. Mosey closed his eyes. Not tonight, he murmured. The whispers softened, but they did not disappear. Just before dawn, the 3 huts filled with smoke. There were no flames, only thick, choking smoke pouring from doorways that refused to open. Villagers ran in panic. Water was thrown. Doors were broken down. But when the smoke cleared, nothing inside was burned, except the mirrors. Every reflective surface has cracked down the center as though struck by invisible fists, and in the fractured glass, villagers swore they saw something standing behind their own reflections. A tall shape, bearded, watching by sunrise. The elder who had allowed Mosey to stay felt a dread he could not explain, so he sent for Oloiponi. The old man arrived before noon, leaning heavily on his carved staff. His hair was white, his back was curved, but his eyes were sharp as blades. He did not ask when he saw Mosey. He did not shout. He bowed. That single gesture sent murmurs across the crowd. You carry it again, Oloiponi said quietly. Mosey's expression did not change. I did not choose it. No one ever does. The elder's gaze dropped to the beard, which stirred faintly under scrutiny. Is it awake? He asked. Mosey hesitated as the air was starting to thicken. Yes, he said at last. It is listening. Oloiponi nodded slowly, as though confirming the suspicion decades old. The beard is not a hair, he said softly. It's a doorway. It remembers what men try to forget. It remembers blood. It remembers promises. His voice lowered further. And it remembers love most of all. A shadow passed through Mosey's eyes. I want it ended, he said. The old man's lips pressed thin. You do not end the beard. The beard decides when it's finished. Later that afternoon, she arrived. Amari Nyaruai walked through the village with the ease of someone who belonged to no single place. gaze was direct, intelligent, unafraid. She stopped when she saw Mosey, and she did not look shocked. She looked curious. "You are loud," she said. Mosey blinked. "I have not spoken." She tilted her head slowly. "Not with your mouth." Her eyes lingered on the beard. "It is crowded in here." Several villages shifted uneasily. Mosey felt the beard tense, as if reacting to recognition. That evening, near the river, where the water lay unnaturally still, Amani approached him again. The surface of the river reflected the sky without ripple. "You do not belong here," she said. "Neither do you," he replied. She stepped closer. Before anyone could warn her, before Mosey could move, her fingers brushed against the beard. The world reacted instantly. The river trembled. The air cracked sharply, like distant thunder. The whispers inside the beard started roaring. Amani gasped, not in fear, but in sudden understanding. "They know me," she breathed. Mosey grabbed her wrist and pulled her hand away. "Do not touch it again." The beard writhed, as if angered by separation. That night, long after the villagers had retreated indoors, something shifted. Mosey grabbed her wrist and pulled her hand away. "Do not touch it again." The beard writhed, as if angered by separation. That night, long after the villagers had retreated indoors, something had shifted. Mosey lay awake in the dark when he felt a sensation like fabric tearing, a separation. The shadows in the hut started to thicken. Slowly, deliberately, a darker shape peeled itself from him. It stood upright. It had its form, his beard, but its eyes glowed faintly, like embers refusing to die. It stepped through the doorway without opening it. The dogs didn't bark. The moon hid behind clouds. The shadow moved towards the center of the village. Moments later, a scream shattered the silence. Mosey jolted upright, with his breath wrecked. His hut was empty. His beard was still, too still. Another scream followed, and beneath his chin, the beard began to move. Not gently, not subtly. It moved with purpose, as though something inside had finally decided to walk. And somewhere in the darkness, between huts and hills, something ancient smiled, because the beard had awakened, and it had begun to remember.